Pew Bibles. Here, we already gave them out. Actually, we have some New Testaments too. So raise your hand if you would like a New Testament. Okay. Mark chapter 16, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 7. Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 7. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had brought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. Every time I read this passage, and just bear with me, the older I get, the less control I have of my emotions, so pray for my wife. But every time I read this passage, I think about all those grown men hiding in a locked room, like I just sang about. And I think about those women going to the tomb. All the grown men hiding. The ones that said, "I'll follow you to death. Lord, here are 2 swords." They've been living today, they'd be like, "Lord, here are 2 Glocks," probably. And those women going right up. The soldiers are there guarding the door. They're going to show up. These women, they're going to show up. They're going to look at these Roman soldiers. Say, "Open that door. We need to go." Who cares if Pilate put his seal on there? You now, listen here, young man. You open that door and you let us in. Don't you know that Jesus' body needs to be anointed? It's amazing to me. Mary Magdalene, Jesus cast 7 devils out of her. Mary, the mother of James. How much they love Jesus. Perfect love casts out fear. You know, Jesus never asked those women, "Do you love me?" He asked Peter. Because Peter would not have denied Jesus if he loved him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came into the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. And they said among themselves, "Who shall roll us away the stone from the door of the sepulchre?" You know, if we had a couple of those tough disciples with us, they could have probably rolled away the stone, but they're off hiding somewhere. I bet they said it's hard to get good help these days. And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. Affrighted. When I first started using the King James Bible, I came across, because I didn't grow up using it, I came across a lot of words that I had trouble understanding. And I went and looked up that word affrighted, and it's different than frightened. It's actually a different word. That's why they translated affrighted instead of frightened. In the Greek, there's a different word that's translated frightened, that we would say frightened today, and affrighted. And affrighted basically means absolutely scared to death, terrified. And that's why it's got the affrighted. So it's like a stronger version of the word frightened. So they were absolutely scared to death of this angel that they saw sitting in the sepulchre, in the tomb. And he saith unto them, "Be not affrighted. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way, tell his disciples and Peter." Well, wouldn't it have been enough to say tell his disciples? But there was one person that probably thought he didn't deserve to be called a disciple anymore. And that would have been Peter. So if Mary had come, or if this is actually a different appearance, because this is when they went and told him that they had seen the angel, because they saw the angel later. When they first came, they didn't see the angel, so there's several different occurrences of resurrection appearances. But anyway, in this example here, he says, "Go tell his disciples and Peter," and you just stop and think, if he had said, "Go tell his disciples," they would have gone and said, so Jesus said, or the angel said to tell his disciples he's risen, and Peter had been like, but I'm not his disciple anymore because I denied him. And so God told the angel to say, go tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee, there shall you see him, as he said unto you. Angel's like, by the way, you remember that he said this would happen, right? He said, the Son of Man is going to Jerusalem. He said this before he went. By the way, he told us that everything was going to be okay too. Whatever you're going through today, whatever I'm going through. He said all things work together for good to them that love God. So you have the same promise. It's going to be okay. Jesus told his disciples, it's going to be okay. I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be betrayed by one of you, and you don't even know who it is. The one of you is going to betray me. Well, the one who was going to betray him knew, but none of the others knew. One of you are going to betray me. I mean, that's not tough enough. And I'm going to be delivered up to the chief priests, and then to the Gentiles, that was the Romans. I'm going to be mocked, I'm going to be beaten, and I'm going to be crucified. The most unbelievable death. We get our word excruciating pain today from that word crucified. Because it's the worst possible pain a human can experience is crucifixion. And I'm going to be crucified. I mean, just imagine. Disciples like, you're the Messiah. You're the one who's going to rule the nations with a rod of iron. Jesus, you're the Messiah. You can't be crucified. Not the King of the Jews. Not the promised Messiah. I know Isaiah 53, that was the Jewish people already fulfilled that. That's what the Jewish people believe. They believe Isaiah 53 is talking about the Jews suffering, not Jesus, not the Messiah. And he said, but in 3 days I'm going to rise again. You know, the Pharisees and the priests remembered that Jesus had said he was going to rise again. He said it openly. They said, we remember that deceiver said in 3 days he'll rise again, so that's why that's why they asked for a guard to guard the tomb and to seal the tomb. And so he says, there shall you see him, as he said unto you. But he said, go your way, tell his disciples and Peter. I want to talk to you this morning about the meaning of the resurrection. We talked about on Thursday night the meaning of the crucifixion. That's on Facebook, and if you want to catch up on that one. The meaning of the resurrection, the meaning of the crucifixion, the meaning of the cross, I'm sorry. But this is the meaning of the resurrection. What does resurrection mean? Well, look at that little phrase, go tell his disciple, go your way, tell his disciples, and Peter. We know what Peter did. He denied Jesus. But you know, we don't always really comprehend what Peter actually did. Because Peter started out, he's just trying to pay attention to what's happening to Jesus, and he's pretending, he's trying to blend in with the crowd. Oh boy, do we have any Christians today who try to blend in with the crowd? Unfortunately, we are all tempted, aren't we, to blend in. Jesus said, you're the salt of the earth, you're the light of the world, but we try to blend in. Become salt has lost its savor. So Peter is like that, and we are all guilty of that from time to time, trying to blend in. When Jesus said, you're the hope of the world. You're the light of the world. Don't take your light, hide under a bushel. Don't try to blend. But we're guilty of that. We all have been guilty of that. And Peter, he's trying to blend in at first. That's all he's trying to do. He didn't mean any harm. But he's there warming his hands by the fire, and someone looks over and says, hey, aren't you one of his disciples? Oh, you mean me? Oh, no way. Mm-mm. So then he's keeps warming his hands by the fire. And then someone says, and as a relative of the guy who got his ear cut off, didn't I see you in the garden? In fact, weren't you the one with the sword that cut off my relative's ear? Who, me? You must be thinking of someone else. No way. And he said, I don't even know who Jesus is. I don't even know who he is. Hey, he was scared. It was a moment of weakness. We've all done things like that. But then they said, but we know that you're his disciple because you talk like him. You know, there's going to come a point in your Christian life where your efforts to blend in are not going to work. And you're going to get outed. You're going to get pushed to come out of the closet, but it's not the kind where they're going to cheer for you. It's the kind where they're going to say, crucify him. And when that moment comes in your life, they're going to say, the reason that we know that you're a Christian, even though you're pretending that you're not, even though you're acting like you're one of us, we know you're not one of us because you don't act or talk like us. And at that point, if you don't let fly with some pretty good colorful language, you're in trouble. If you don't join in to their activities, if you don't drink what they drink, smoke what they smoke, talk the way they talk, laugh at their jokes, watch what they watch, party the way they party, they are going to say, you are one of those narrow-minded, legalistic, judgmental Christians. We know what you're like, and you're going to be so scared that you're going to be like, blankety blank what? It happens. It happens to all of us. All of us get in those situations where we're trying to blend in, and we don't want to be different. But listen, I want you to understand, if I was, some of you, I work with you. And you know I'm married and I have children. But can you imagine if you overheard me go, no, actually, I'm not married. What would you think of me? And just forget about me being a pastor, because obviously it's like, oh, a pastor would never do that. That's fine, he gets paid to be good. You know how that goes. But just pretend you knew I was a Christian and then you saw me do that. What would I be doing if I did that? I would be proving I did not love my wife. That's what I would be proving. And unfortunately, folks, we have to understand this. This is what Peter did, and we all have done this. There can come a point where our love for ourselves and our reputation and our friends and the world becomes greater than our love for God. And at some point, we have to start imitating people around us so that we can blend in. And that's what Peter did. It can happen to any of us. And so when they said, Peter, we know that you are one of his disciples because you talk like him. They said, thy speech be ready with thee. You talk like him. So he said, we don't really understand what he really said because it says he cursed. And we think of cursing as just saying a bad word. It was more than that. He was cursing Jesus Christ. See, in that culture, if you wanted to prove that you weren't following him and that he was a bad guy, because everybody agreed Jesus was bad and deserved to be crucified, he was saying, what, that blankety blank, son of a blankety blank? He was cursing Jesus, the person who he had walked with and had fellowship with. He was his right-hand man for 3 years, but in that moment of weakness and fear, he was trying to prove that he wasn't one of the disciples by cursing him. That's what Peter did. Now, I'm not telling you that to get you all, us all to be just to be hard on Peter. No, this is what we all face, isn't it? I preached last Sunday on blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you. Shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Under pressure, we're all capable of doing what Peter did. And under pressure, all of us have done some form of what Peter did. And that's why Peter felt unworthy. And really, he had said he wasn't his disciple. So he had himself denied being a disciple. And so you can imagine why the angel said, tell his disciples and Peter. So what is the meaning of the resurrection? The first one is in this passage. It's this: we have forgiveness. Well, Pastor, the word forgiveness isn't in this passage. No, but forgiveness is. Go tell his disciples and Peter. That's forgiveness. Peter knew he was forgiven because the message from the angel was Go tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. You know what Peter was saying? Jesus was saying, say, Peter, I'm not done with you. I forgive you. That's Christianity, folks. And we don't remember anything else from today. What is the meaning of the resurrection? Forgiveness. He said, go tell the disciples and Peter. Well, what does forgiveness have to do with the resurrection? Well, if Jesus hadn't risen from the dead, he wouldn't be able to tell Peter that he forgave him. So the resurrection is all tied up in forgiveness, isn't it? And folks, that's what we need today, don't we? You know, I think what we need more than anything else as Christians is we need to remember that Christianity is all about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about making what somebody did okay. That's where we get confused. If someone did something wrong, we're not going to say it's okay what they did. We're not saying what Peter did was okay. Jesus never said that what Peter did was okay. And we'll see that when we get to the end, where he asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? Mm-hmm. He forgave him, but he needed to enlist him back in his service again. He needed to be restored. So forgiveness is not about erasing what someone did, but forgiveness is about letting that your love for someone, and we are commanded to love everyone. It's about letting your love for someone be stronger than anything they've ever done to you. That's what forgiveness is. And Jesus loved Peter. And he said, go your way, tell the disciples and Peter. So number 1, the meaning of the resurrection, number 1, we have forgiveness. Number 2 is in Luke chapter 24. So in your Bible you can turn. If you have one, not you listen along. Luke chapter 24. Verse 30 through 34. Luke chapter 24, verses 30 through 34. Just a short section. This is, of course, in Luke chapter 24, very well known, the story of when they were walking on the road to Emmaus. And Jesus appears to them, but because he's in his glorified body, and the Bible says their eyes were holden, God stopped them from recognizing him. So they're walking along the road talking to this stranger and telling him what happened, and they say at the end, and I guess we'll be reading that part, didn't our heart burn within us? So they're walking on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus joins in with them, and I've preached on that before, we don't have time for it today, but they asked him, abide with us, for it is toward evening, the day is far spent. So he went in and sat down with them to eat. I was telling you about Brother Joe Arthur, my favorite preacher. I always visit his church down there. Well, he has a message called Heavenly Holy Heartburn about this passage. I won't try to preach that for you. There's only one Joe Arthur. But he, in his message, he talks about this. He says that he believes the reason that they recognized him when and he can't prove this, of course, it's just his opinion, but he calls it the Arthurized version. But anyway, when he broke bread, here's what he believes. He's in his glorified body, and they didn't recognize him. But when he sat down and he broke bread, you know, when you sit down, your sleeves kind of roll back a little. And you know, of course, they didn't nail him in his hands. It's called his hands in the Bible because your wrist is part of your hand in that culture. But it was actually the wrist. So the nail would have been right about here. And they had long sleeves. So when he's walking on the road, his sleeves are covering up his... So what he's thinking is, he sat down and he went and grabbed the bread, and when he broke it, his sleeves fell back and they saw. And that was when they recognized him. We don't know if that's true, but that's possible. Verse 30, it came to pass as he sat at meat with them. So I'm just giving you that background, that it's the road to Emmaus, and the people that were walking the road to Emmaus with them. It came to pass as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it and brake, which is Old English past tense for broke, and gave to them. Verse 31, and their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. Jesus was keeping a very busy schedule that day. He didn't have time to follow normal methods of transportation. So he appeared to this person, and then he appeared to that person. He appeared to all different people during that day. He had a lot of places to go. And so he just appeared to them so that they would know he was alive. Now, they were walking the road to Emmaus, and I'm trying to remember now, but I believe Emmaus was about 7 miles away from Jerusalem. So, 7 miles, we're talking about running a 5-mile race. So, that was a good walk. It was probably about 2.5 hours maybe. You could walk 7 miles if you're walking. So they had walked 7 miles, okay, with Jesus. And then it's almost evening. It's dusk is setting in. And he appears to them. He breaks the bread. And immediately they recognized him, and then he disappeared. Look at this. I love this. And they said one to another, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures?" And they rose up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem. Now it's dark. And they walked 7 miles all the way back to Jerusalem. Well, they were pretty excited that Jesus had risen from the dead. I think any of us would have be willing to do a 8K, or I guess that's like a 10K, in order to tell people, we saw Jesus, he rose from the dead. Rose at the same hour, returned to Jerusalem, found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them, saying, I love this part, the Lord is risen indeed. That's where it comes from. A lot of churches say, the Lord is risen. The pastor will say that. And then the congregation will answer back, the Lord is risen indeed. That's where it comes from here, okay? The Lord is risen indeed, and hath appeared to Simon. They called Peter Simon. This is an interesting study. But did you know Jesus named Peter, which means a stone? His real name, or his given name, was Simon. God, when God gives you a name, like he said, you're no more Jacob, but you're Israel. Did you know when God gives you a name, he doesn't name you what you are. He names you what he's going to turn you into. He names you what you're going to become. And boy, Peter was not any kind of a stone at first. He was very, very, shall we say, conflicted. A conflicted human, very much like you and me. But it says, the Lord is risen indeed and hath appeared to Simon. But remember, the angel said, Peter, tell his disciples and Peter. Do you know, it's amazing that the angel said, call Peter by the name Jesus gave him after he denied Jesus. Because God sees something in you don't even see in yourself. And after you've messed up everything and wrecked everything, and you think you don't deserve anything, and your life is worthless, useless, God sees the person inside you that he called, and he knows what he's going to turn you into. He knows what he's going to make you to be. He's got a plan for you. And so he says, go tell the disciples and Peter. But then in this passage it says, and the Lord is risen indeed and hath appeared to Simon. That's Simon, whose surname is Peter, the Bible says. They use Peter kind of like his last name in the Bible. They still call him Simon. Lord is risen indeed and hath appeared to Simon. So Jesus had appeared to him. Remember, there was a message. That's forgiveness. The message was, go tell his disciples and Peter. That was the message. But then you know what happened? Jesus appeared personally to Peter. It says right here, the Lord is risen indeed and hath appeared to Simon. He appeared to other people as well. They didn't say the Lord is risen, he appeared to Mary. Right? That was at the tomb. The Lord is risen, he appeared to the other. Why did he love those ladies so much? The disciples probably wondered while they're hiding in a locked room. Why did they get all the special treatment? Well, you never know what you miss out on when you live in fear. Why are they so special? I don't know. Going up against Roman soldiers might have made them a little bit more special to Jesus Christ. But Jesus went and appeared personally to Simon. And what does that tell us? Well, number one, the meaning of the resurrection is we have forgiveness. Number two, the meaning of the resurrection is not just forgiveness, but we have fellowship. You see, he knew he was forgiven because the angel said, and tell Peter. So he knew he was forgiven. But boy, there's a big difference between forgiveness and fellowship, right? There's a difference between a prosecuting attorney saying, or a judge saying, or a jury saying, we'll let you go, right? There's a difference between that and becoming friends with those people. There's a difference. There's a difference between Jesus forgiving Peter. Peter could have been forgiven, and he thought he was going to go back to fishing We'll get to that, right? He thought he was going back to fishing. He didn't think he was ever going to be a disciple. I'll go back to my old occupation here. But Jesus appeared personally to him. He hath appeared to Simon, and that's fellowship. Listen, the resurrection does not just mean that you are forgiven. The resurrection means you can have fellowship. I don't know how to even say this to you. Jesus Christ wants to have fellowship with you. Jesus didn't save you just so you could go to heaven. I mean, guess what we're going to be doing in heaven? Fellowship. He said, that where I am, there you may be also. Jesus did not just save you so that you could be forgiven. He saved you so you could have fellowship. God wants fellowship with you. Do you know God had fellowship with Adam and Eve? They would walk in the garden together, and sin destroyed the fellowship, and that's why they had to be put out of the garden. But then God made a way, right, to bring them back into fellowship. He taught them how to offer sacrifices. And then, I don't know if you know what the purpose of the tabernacle was, but when God told Moses to build a tabernacle, you know what he said? Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. God wanted to have fellowship with them, but they had to deal with sin. You see, the forgiveness is dealing with sin, but the purpose of dealing with your sin and my sin is fellowship. God created you in his image, and he wants to have fellowship with you. By the way, that's why it's so sad when we deny him like Peter. Because we're rejecting some fellowship that he wants to have with us. But he forgave Peter, and he'll forgive you, and he'll forgive me 70 times 7, because he wants fellowship. We have a fellowship. And you know what's going to happen in the New Jerusalem? It says, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will be their God, and he'll dwell among them, and they will be his people. Did you know that's the whole plan? God created you for fellowship. Sin destroyed that fellowship. God instituted the sacrifices in the Old Testament so that they could have fellowship. And then that was a picture of Jesus Christ dying on the cross and rising from the dead so that we could have fellowship. Listen, the resurrection is not just about forgiveness. A lot of times we're like, well, I'm saved. I know I'm going to heaven. That's wonderful. If there was a time in your life where you understood you were a sinner and you asked Jesus to forgive your sins and you put your trust in him, you have forgiveness. But do you have fellowship? He wants fellowship with you. Fellowship through prayer. Fellowship through fellowship with God's people. Fellowship through obeying him. Fellowship through reading his word. He wants fellowship with you. Don't wait till you get to have that fellowship, because then you'll regret that you missed out on the fellowship you could have had on earth. And then there will be other people on this earth who will miss out on the fellowship they could have had, because if you are not walking in fellowship with him, you can't bear fruit. Jesus said, if you abide in me and I in you, you'll bring forth much fruit. So that fruit is that not only you would have fellowship, other people would come into fellowship with God. And thanks to all of you that passed out 500 tracts this week. Why? Because you want someone else to have fellowship. You want them to have forgiveness? Yes. But you also want them to have fellowship. And what they do with that, and you're just planting seeds, that's not your problem. But you can pray for them. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to plant that seed wherever you are, whatever you're doing. When you get an opportunity, share that message. Because Jesus wants fellowship with you. He wants fellowship with everyone. But it's a free choice. He's not going to force anyone to have fellowship. Because by definition, if you force someone to have fellowship, it's not fellowship, is it? It's not fellowship. You have to voluntarily want it. You have to choose it. It'll be the best thing you ever choose. The meaning of the resurrection. Number 1, we have forgiveness. Number 2, we have fellowship. And number 3 is in John 21. John 21. And of course, just a background, we won't read the whole passage, but most of you probably know this. Jesus said, go to Galilee and I'll meet with you. Peter went, okay, I'll go to Galilee. Listen. Here's what Peter said. And listen, this is what the devil is going to tell you. Okay, you have forgiveness. I mean, I can't argue with the Bible. It says, whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Okay, I believe that I'm going to heaven. I believe I have forgiveness. Peter believed it. Okay, I believe it. He said, and Peter. But then, Jesus appeared personally to Peter. And now he had fellowship. He had appeared to Simon. And Peter's like, wow, I can't believe Jesus would actually have fellowship with me. But then Peter said, And that's so nice. And hopefully from time to time, Jesus will pop by my fishing boat and say, hey, Peter. Maybe he'll even say, cast your net on the other side. Maybe I can be a fisher of fish. Listen, but I'll never be a fisher of men. The devil's telling you that right now. You'll never be a fisher of men. Because you done messed up too bad. You done blew it. That's what they say down south. I always say, that's bad English, but boy, it's good theology. Now they tell me I say ain't too much. I tell it's because I listen to Joe Arthur too much. We have forgiveness, number one. We have fellowship, number two. But there's one more thing we have that the devil doesn't want you to know you have. And if you hear it today, he doesn't want you to believe it. And if you believe it, he doesn't want you to live it. We have forgiveness. We have fellowship. One more thing that we have. So, Peter goes fishing. Thomas, Nathaniel, and two other disciples. One of them's John. We know because it talks about it in the passage. And they're out fishing. They fish all night. They catch nothing. That kind of reminds you of the first time they met Jesus. Remember? They were out fishing all night and they caught nothing. Because Peter's like, I got forgiveness. I got fellowship. But I can't fish for men. That was a nice thing Jesus said. You know, Jesus, he's just a little bit too optimistic. Because Jesus thinks he's going to turn this ship around called Simon Peter, and there's no way. I've messed it too much. I've taken on way too much water. There's no way. So I'm just going to go back to fishing for fish. Because there's no way I could ever fish for men. Because remember, the first time he met Jesus, the first time he fished and Jesus showed up, Jesus said, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. All right? Fishers of men. So in this whole situation, of course, we know what happens. And I read it, but Jesus, he's on the shore. I've been to that exact spot. Remember that chapel they had there? Heptapagon, Seven Springs. Beautiful spot. There's warm water there. And so the fish come there because there's these warm springs that come in. They like the warm water. So that's most likely the place where Jesus stood on the shore and said, did you catch anything? And they were like, nope. So he said, cast it on the other side. And they're like, they didn't know it was Jesus, but I think it's starting to be a little familiar. The last time someone said that to us, it was Jesus. But I don't know if they know yet. They cast on the other side, full of fish. And John says, it's the Lord. You know, John, he was a pretty smart guy. He figured out if somebody from the shore says, you fished all night, you throw on the other side, and you catch a whole bunch of fish, John figured out that's probably Jesus. John was a smart guy. It's the Lord. And Peter. See, Peter had fellowship with Jesus. So now Peter. It says he put on his fisher's coat because he was naked. He was probably fishing in his underwear or whatever because he didn't want to get fish all over smelly fish all over their clothes. He threw on his coat and jumped in the water. Peter was so excited that Jesus was excited. But I think he thought it was just fellowship. But he was like, I want to have some fellowship with Jesus. And he jumped over and swam to shore. That's how excited Peter was. That's what forgiveness and fellowship will do to you. He got excited and he jumped and he went to shore. But there was one more thing that had to happen to Peter, and Peter didn't see it coming. He didn't know. Verse 15. So Jesus already had some fish cooking. He gave him fish for breakfast. And they were done eating. Here's verse 15. So when they had dined, John 21:15. So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, do a study sometime of all the times that Jesus called him Peter. Thou art Peter. Now on this rock I'll build my church, right? He says, thou art, from henceforth thou shalt be called Cephas, which being interpreted as a stone. Cephas was actually Peter's name. That's his Aramaic name, Kepha. And then Peter is just the Greek translation. It means a stone in Greek. So he says, Simon, son of Jonas. Whenever Jesus called Peter Simon, He's talking to him as in his human weakness. See, Jesus knows our weakness. And so he's talking to him in his weakness, and he's telling him how he's going to help him with his weakness every time. Simon, Simon, he says, Satan hath demanded that he might have thee. He's talking to him in his weakness. It says, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? Because do you remember what he said to Jesus? Even if everyone else denies you, I won't. What was he saying? I love you more than everyone else. And yet he was the one that denied Jesus. He meant well. The spirit was willing, the flesh was weak. He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. Well, of course, Jesus. We're back in fellowship now. Of course, Jesus. Of course I love you. Of course. You know, when you and I mess up, we need that forgiveness that we have through the resurrection. And then we need the fellowship that we have through the resurrection. But listen, Jesus isn't done with you just by you having forgiveness and fellowship. There's something more that he wants from you. But this is how you prove you love him. You see, forgiveness is him proving that he loves you. Fellowship is him proving that he loves you, that he's willing to have fellowship with you and me after we failed. That's only him proving he loves you. But there's a way you can prove you love him. And he says, Lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. He saith to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas. Again, he's calling him Simon. Lovest thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my sheep. He saith unto him the third time. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And Peter's figuring out now. He's starting to catch on. Uh-oh. He asked me a third. And it's all coming back. Listen, there's going to come a time. This is one of the reasons why it's hard to read your Bible. And one of the reasons why it's hard to be in church. Do you know God will sometimes bring your failures to mind? Not because he's trying to make you feel bad, but because he has a future for you. And he's trying to show you a different path in the future. You know, there's a saying, I believe it was Albert Einstein. You like quotes, right? Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? He's telling Peter, just saying, well, Simon, actually is what he said, just saying you love me is not going to change this cycle. There's a way, Peter, Simon, there's a way to change the cycle. Listen, everybody here, and me included, there's a way to change the cycle of failure, forgiveness, fellowship. Failure, forgiveness, fellowship. There's a way to change the cycle. And he's showing it to Peter right here, and he's showing it to us. Say unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? And now Peter is struggling because he's being reminded of what he did. But listen, God never reminds you of what you've done in the past to make you feel bad. He reminds you what you've done in the past to show you how you can be different in the future. Because he has a plan for you. He has a plan for me. Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? Hey, there's going to be times where you're going to come to church and you're going to be grieved because the pastor doesn't even know. Most of the time, the pastor doesn't even know what you did this last week, or he doesn't know something you did in your past a long time ago. By the way, you don't know everything the pastor's done in his life either, in his past. And I think we're both grateful. I'm probably thankful I don't know what you did, and you're probably thankful you don't know what I did, okay? I'm not trying to say I was a serial killer, okay? I'm trying to scare you. But we've all done things we're ashamed of. And it's okay to be reminded if the purpose of the reminder is to change the cycle and to change the future. And there is a powerful way to change your future, and for me to change my future. Peter was grieved. Don't leave church and go, I feel guilty when I go to church, the pastor's preaching this stuff. No, because you missed the end where the pastor or the passage actually showed you the way out because you're too busy feeling bad. And the devil's there. You know that. The devil's there right there. See what you did? You know, the devil's the only, he tempts you to sin, then you sin, then he kicks you when you're down. And then convinces you can never do right again. He plays both sides of that. He tells you sin is fine until you do it, and then when you fail, then he kicks you until makes you feel terrible about it, because he doesn't play fair. Devil is an enemy combatant, and he doesn't follow the Geneva Convention. Okay, he not only captures you in battle, but he tortures you in his POW camp. So Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, "Lovest thou me?" And you said unto him, it's a little more humble now, isn't it? "Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee." Jesus saith unto him, "Feed my sheep." Number one, we have forgiveness, meaning of the resurrection. Number two, we have fellowship. And number three, don't miss this, we have a future. That was Peter's future. He was going to feed Jesus' sheep. God was going to use him on the day of Pentecost to preach and to lead the little church in Jerusalem that wasn't very little. Thousands of people in that church. Jesus used Peter in a powerful way after he messed up in a powerful way. Because the solution to the cycle is serving God. You want to get out of the cycle of failure and then forgiveness, fellowship, failure, forgiveness, fellowship. Jesus will forgive you forever. He never stops forgiving you. But you want to break out of that cycle? You have a future. Focus on your future. And what is your future? The same as Peter's future. Feed my sheep, he says, Peter. I want you to serve me. I want you to serve me. You see, everyone here, God has something for you to do. Might be doing what you did yesterday. Or it might be cooking some of what you cooked today. Or it might be passing things out. It might be talking to your relative or your friend or your coworker. But you know what? God has a way he wants you to serve him. And the longer you serve him, the sweeter he grows. You serve him. You're still going to fail because you're human. I'm still going to fail. But you know, when you start serving Jesus, feed my sheep, you start serving him, you know what's going to happen? You're going to fail less. Because service is love in action. Lovest thou me? Feed my sheep. Peter, love is not talking. I love Jesus so much. Love is serving. Love is serving. The meaning of the resurrection. Number one, we have forgiveness. Number two, we have fellowship. I'm thankful for those two, but listen, isn't it amazing? Number three, we have a future. Isn't it amazing? Listen, if Jesus could use Peter after what Peter did, do you think he can use us? He can use us. And folks, that's the resurrection's all about. Don't miss it. We have forgiveness. We have fellowship. We have a future. We have a future. There's a future for Peter after he messed up. There's a future for us. What a wonderful, wonderful promise from God's Word. I'm going to ask Kimberly to come up. And we're going to close with number 138, He Arose. Number 138, He Arose. If you're here today and you've never asked Jesus to forgive your sins, you can do that. You can ask him to forgive your sins. In fact, before we play, I'm going to go ahead and close in prayer. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to pray and ask Jesus to forgive your sins. So I'm just going to close in prayer here. And you can have that forgiveness he offered. And you can have the future. And maybe you're here today and you are already saved. But you need that forgiveness and that fellowship. And you needed this reminder that you have a future in Christ. And so if you are going to respond to this message, you can do that now as we pray. Father in heaven, I thank you for this reminder, this powerful, powerful reminder about Peter and how he messed up really bad. And you forgave him, and you have fellowship with him, and you gave him a future, and that's true for all of us. So if you're here today and you want to receive that free gift of everlasting life, you can pray a simple prayer in your heart between you and the Lord. Just say something like this in your heart: Jesus, thank you for dying for me. I'm a sinner and I need forgiveness. Please forgive my sins and save me, make me a child of God. If you pray that in your heart, the Bible says, whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. You have eternal life the very moment you put your trust in Jesus. But if you're here today and you're more like Peter, you really already have that salvation, but you need to get back in fellowship with God. You need to Ask for forgiveness for things that you've done since your salvation. You need to get fellowship with him, whether in his word or through prayer or through God's people. And you want to have that future he has for you. This is an opportunity as well. Just say something like this in your heart. Just say, Jesus, thank you for saving me. But I need forgiveness because I've been like Peter. I've denied you, or I've wandered from you. I haven't lived the way I should. I need fellowship. I want to have fellowship with you through your word, through prayer, through God's people. And Jesus, even though it's hard for me to believe this, I choose right now to believe that I have a future, just like Peter had a future. Jesus said that he chose us that we should bear much fruit. Thank you, Jesus, for rising from the dead. Thank you for forgiveness. Thank you for fellowship. Thank you for a future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Number 138, he arose.